All right, good evening, everybody. If everyone could please take their seat, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Well, thank you all for being here with us this evening. My name is Ryan Ashton. I am the Vice President of Development here at your Aquarium of the Pacific. Now, before we get started, I just would like to ask if everyone would please silence their cell phones. Thank you very much, or your mobile devices, and please refrain from texting during the presentation, so thank you for that. And first, I would like to say thank you to our lecture sponsors, the Gazette newspaper, Courtyard Marriott, Blue Ocean Mariculture, and Verlasso Salmon. I believe you had some of that upstairs if you were at the reception. And tonight's event is also sponsored by the USC Wrigley Delta Murphy Lecture Series. And before we bring up our panel and start our conversation, I would like to invite Breen Murphy to say a few words about the Wrigley Delta Murphy Lecture Series. Please help me welcome Breen Murphy. All yours, Breen.
All right, cool. I don't like being behind lecterns, so I'm going to come out and just two-hand this. Welcome to the USC Wrigley Delta Murphy Lecture Series. There's a lot of people involved, so can we get some thank yous to can I get some hands up for USC staff? There's a bunch of you in the audience. Come on, Anne, John Heidelberg, come on, Ken Nealson. There's a really incredible group of people there, and they deserve so many accolades. The Aquarium of the Pacific, can we get some hands too? Ryan, Kim, yes. And also the Seven Crossings Project. These are some people that I have loved working with. Come on, you both of you two. Hands up. Hands up. All right. So there's one more thing. So how many of you knew Delta Murphy? Can I get some more hands? All right. So all you people that don't have your hands up, look at those other people that have their hands up. All those people know that I'm screwed because I have 3 minutes, and I don't know how to describe Delta Murphy, right? It's just impossible. So go talk with them and just ask them about what she was like. Because she was amazing. Most people will tell you stories about what she would wear. I mean, she just had this Dallas game that was we're talking light blue jackets with rhinestones and neon fluorescent Verlasso salmon pink lips, and she had this blonde kind of perm, and it was incredible. But the thing that I think you'll also hear about her is she was indomitable. She was tiny. She was amazing. She was so curious, right? She always wanted to learn. And I don't know if she was really close with her father, who was a scientist. And the other thing is she cared about people. And she was so involved. And this kind of character attributes led her to be an amazing volunteer, which led her to be on the Whittier City Council, which led her to be the mayor of Whittier, which led her to be on the LA City Planning Commission. And there's lists and lists of things that she did. But the thing that she loved the most, more than any of all of that, and the thing that she dedicated the last 25 years of her life to, was the USC Wrigley Institute for Environmental Studies. And she loved it. She loved it because they were on the cutting edge, doing things that really mattered. All these solutions, bringing back species from extinction, figuring out ways to live a cleaner, healthier life with our oceans, with the environment. And the thing that she loved to work on was just how do we get all those solutions on this island back here? And so she dedicated a lot of her life. But I want to tell two stories. So the first story is about me growing up. And my parents, they were going away, their parents, they don't get that many romantic weekends. You know how it is, your parents. And they had me. I'm I've got a million activities, and I have a little bit of Delta in me, a little bit of intensity. And so we're with Delta, but those attributes don't necessarily make the warmest grandmother, so I'm a little intimidated, because she's got something going on. And so we go, and we hang out with her, and she's got a plan. She always has a plan. And we go to the IMAX movie theater. And she knows I surf, and part of her, caring for people, part of her curiosity is we watch The Living Sea. I know, great. See? That was a thing for you guys. And they know that I love the ocean, and it just, having this big, immersive experience, just, it opened my eyes. And she knew what film could do, right? And I knew that she kind of had it all planned, and so after I got out of it, it really touched me. And then the second story I want to tell was, later in her life, she came to my dad at a certain point, and was really asking. My dad is he's a successful advertising guy, and she was curious how to get the word out, because what she kind of started to feel was that people weren't understanding what was actually happening on the island. They didn't know what types of solutions we have, what types of options we have in the face of, what seem like really insurmountable odds, but what actually is a key to really a beautiful future. And so at that point, I'm so grateful to Jamie for doing this project, for bringing awareness, because there's something he gets about giving back to the oceans. But it really comes back to a philosophy, really, that I think. My grandma for so long was thinking about, what is keeping it on the island? What's separating us? And the thing is with this paddle that you start to realize is the oceans aren't what separate us. They're what connect us. So thank you very much for coming here. I'm really excited to have Jamie and talking with Dr. Nealson and Dr. Schubel. And I hope you have a really good time.
All right. Thank you so much, Breen. Those are great stories. The Veloso salmon-colored teeth. That's our lipstick. I'm sorry. Lipstick. Oops. So tonight, I am pleased to welcome a panel of experts who will discuss the ocean and its role in sustainable future. So our first guest is a professional big wave surfer and 10-time Molokai champion. He is launching 7 Crossings, a new venture to paddle the Channel Islands to generate awareness of our changing ocean and potential solutions to support ocean health. Please help me in welcome Jamie Mitchell. Right, testing, here we go. All right, Jamie, so here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
So let's start off with a little bit about your background. So, tell us where you're from, tell us, a little bit of your story and how you connected with the ocean at an early age.
Yeah, I grew up in a small little town called Coffs Harbour in New South Wales, sort of in between, I would say, Sydney and the Gold Coast, Sydney and Brisbane. I got diagnosed with sort of pretty chronic asthma at a young age, probably around about 4 or 5 years old, and the doctors recommended that swimming would really help open up my lungs and give me a better quality of childhood, basically. So my parents, I learned how to swim. They put me straight in the swimming lessons. They put me into the NIPA program, which is like the junior lifeguard program that they have here in California and Hawaii. And then I was actually, you can't go into NIPAs until you're 5, but they lied and I was 4 and I went to go in early. And and I fell in love with competing. It's really crazy, but at 5 years old, you're doing all these little musical flag races, beach sprints. You do these things called wading, where you wade out around the parents or in the ocean and come back, and then you get to learn how to paddle a little foamy board and swimming races, and then all of a sudden, after a few years, you start racing these things, and you're doing carnivals all around Australia, and it becomes quite serious, you know. And I was quite good, and so I was able to like do that very seriously from a young age, you know. And I became super competitive, and that was sort of my introduction into the ocean, you know. And you know, along with my dad, you know, I give my dad a lot of credit because my mum hated the water. I actually taught my mum how to swim, and she would never go past her knees until she was about 50 years old. And now she goes and stand-up surfs every morning, so which is really awesome. So
You've inspired mom now to continue.
yeah. But my dad was a waterman. He loved surfing. He loved fishing, and he would take me out on an old surfing wave ski and put me on his lap, and we'd go out and catch a wave. And that's really my first memories of that glide of catching a wave. You know, that was the hook, you know.
Yeah, you were hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. It's it's interesting to hear how you connected with the water through asthma, and it makes me think about the healing powers of water and the healing powers of the ocean. And I think there's a lot now with various groups that are using surfing as therapy.
Yeah.
For various disabilities. Or,
Yeah,
or
I think there's the cystic fibrosis. I was did some stuff with those kids, and the salt air it takes the mucus off their lungs and it gives them a better quality of life. Yeah. So the ocean it's basically everything.
Absolutely, and that's the reason we're here tonight to talk. And before we go any further, I want to give the audience a little glimpse further into your background and some of your accomplishments. So I know you brought a new trailer with you today that is highlighting your background, but also this new venture that you're about to embark on. So
I haven't seen it either. So
all right, here we go. I think we're all. This is a world premiere of the new Seven Crossings trailer, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and roll that, AV, please.
My name is Jamie Mitchell. I'm actually from a town called Coffs Harbour in New South Wales, Australia. I learned how to swim at a really young age, and I got asthma at a young age as well, diagnosed with acute asthma. So I was told by doctors that swimming would help my asthma. So my parents put me into a program they call Australia. It's called Nippers. It's like the junior lifeguard program they have here in Hawaii. At that stage, I was we're training on our paddle boards, we were swimming. I think then was like when I started to really understand, like learning about the ocean. What are the advantages I can get of diving down under the water deeper or grabbing the sand, or how do I body surf better than everyone? Like, what are the techniques? And so that became the obsession. And I think that from when I really was able to start to understand how to not manipulate the ocean, but really use it to my advantage, I think that's when I fell in love with the ocean. Winning the Molokai for 10 years in a row was something that I really couldn't even dreamed of.
Jamie's one of those rare individuals that has a whole lot of natural talent. And his read on the water is phenomenal.
There's something about that race that really took my career personally to a whole nother level.
He gets in a higher gear and keeps going. When he hits the wall, he breaks through.
You'd hear all this talk about how this guy was going to beat me and this guy was going to beat me, and that just drove me to really just to go as hard as I could.
Bedtime world champion.
He's professional in two sports, paddling and big wave surfing.
Sideline and that rail gives up a little bit of trouble. Great balance to Jamie Mitchell.
Big wave surfing is I feel like is an evolution of my whole entire life of being in the water.
His body work, his mental strength, if all of that is aligned, then I feel comfortable knowing that he can get through almost anything. He's had some horrendous wipeouts.
It's it's crazy, man. Talking about it makes me think how crazy it is. You know what I mean? But it's awesome. I do set high goals and expectations for myself, and I think that allows me to go after them, and I'm not scared to not achieve my goals. For me, it's really time. I took a good hard look at myself and said, I've taken so much from the ocean that now it's time for me to give back. 7 Crossings is basically a paddle, 7 channels, 7 crossings. It's going to start up in the Northern Channel Islands, and we're going to finish right here in Catalina. About a total of over 150 miles and 7 stories, all about sustainability.
We're one of the few universities in the world that has an island. And when you talk about doing sustainability, having an island's a huge advantage.
We are able to harvest the food for our staff, for our guests, and really using it as a teaching classroom.
I have 2 young daughters that are 4 and 2, and I really just want them to have the life that I've had in the ocean.
The CO2 that's in the air affects the ocean, and we've got to do something about that.
Protein for the training tomorrow. The project is only going to be done 1 paddle at a time. I'm not a young 20-year-old anymore. I'm a 40-year-old that just had shoulder surgery. So I think it's important to take it to the next level. And the next level for me is give the USC and the Wrigley Institute the outreach it needs to get this out to the world, to the public, so they understand what these good people are doing. The project is going to finish here on Catalina, but that's when the journey begins.
It's about saving our habitat. We already know how to do this. It's a question of whether we can get the people engaged and convince them how important this is.
Wow, incredible. So, before we go into 7 Crossings, Jamie, we gotta talk about those waves for a second. Okay, so give me the size of some of those waves that we just saw in that trailer.
The one in France, the Yosemite fall off on top.
Yeah.
That was like 60 feet. Yeah, 6 stories.
So, where do you go mentally when you're falling 60 feet?
You don't go anywhere. But seriously, like, it's, for me, I relax and I sort of shut off, because if you're fighting and it's like anything in the water, if you're fighting against it, you're losing. And every extra bit of energy that you're fighting against there's a chance that you're not going to come up. So for me, the ocean will, you know when it lets go of you. And, when you feel like it lets go of you, then you fight, But we're also very lucky that we've been able to develop the inflatable vests that we have now these days. So, but, experience, a lot of training, and just really going to your happy place.
Is that?
Yeah.
You must do a lot of yoga or meditation.
Yeah.
To get to that happy place.
Yeah.
So you said the inflatable vest, is that something that's required now of all the big wave surfers
It's
on the tour?
not required, but I mean, it's funny now that if you don't paddle out with one, you sort of look at someone and go, you're sort of being reckless, because we all, we travel around the world, and we all know each other. We all know each other's families, and the last thing we want to do is have to call someone's wife and say, hey, this has happened, So
these are waves of consequence.
Yeah, you got to respect it, and it's the future. It's technology. It's innovation. Exactly what the USC is doing. So it's sort of like, why not use it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's get back into your connection with the ocean at an early age and kind of where you are today. So, as someone who's been just in a love affair with Mother Ocean for so long, what changes have you seen since you were a kid to where you are today?
Oh, I think the biggest thing that most people have seen is probably just the pollution, and then, For me, I grew up in Australia, so the Great Barrier Reef is like a seventh wonder of the world, right? And then also you start to hear about the bleaching of the coral and how that's getting destroyed. So, I think that there's so much that's changed. And, I do travel the world and I go to a lot of amazing, beautiful places, but you come back with a bad taste in your mouth, and it's like, and you're like, wow, how did these people not know, about to not just throw your rubbish in the water, or how, all the stuff like that. So it's I think it gets back to education,
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes without saying, I mean, that ocean health obviously impacts your livelihood as a professional surfer.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it impacts everyone, right? We need the ocean to survive as human beings. So I think that's the great thing about this is that, you don't have to live in the ocean or spend as much time in the ocean like I do, but if we want to survive on this earth, we need to look after it.
Yeah. So something I heard you say in the trailer we just watched was, you've taken so much from the ocean, and now it's your time to give back.
Yeah.
And I know you're a father.
Yeah.
And so, how has fatherhood, impacted your, the way you think about things?
It's definitely changed. I just, it's very, I've been a very selfish person, to do what I've done, and, you look at it and go, yeah, he's awesome, or he's done that and this and that, but it's very selfish, it's, a lot of me, a lot of training, a lot of just, worrying about yourself, and then when you have kids, it's the exact opposite. So,
right.
And, I just, when I'm with the kids and I see things differently now, and I just want them to have the same chance and opportunity that I've had, like in and around the water and the ocean. And I honestly, with just getting a little bit more knowledge on what's going on, I really think that if change doesn't happen soon, then that mightn't happen for them. It might be, and their children, and I think that would be a huge mistake.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm a father myself, so that's something I think about on a daily basis, and which I think turns a lot of individuals into advocates, and what's stewarding our planet and stewarding our oceans. And I know you traveled on this trip here with your daughter Nevaeh.
Yeah.
And so it was I had the opportunity to go to Catalina with you on Monday and see the two of you explore together. And then what really was exciting was today also seeing you within the aquarium and sitting through the theater show here at Pacific Visions and being in there. And I looked over and saw the both of you kind of eyes wide open and kind of your mouths just in awe of what you were experiencing in there together. And it was a pretty special moment.
It was. And, it's just, you get to see like it. We flew in the red eye on Sunday night in Monday morning, and we jumped straight on the boat, went to Catalina, went to the Wrigley Institute, and had a great day. And it just, while I was there with Nevaeh and everyone, I was like, you know what, this just reiterates the fact that what I'm doing is the right thing. And all the people are working so hard behind this project, like it just gave me an extra like, okay, I am going to do this. Like, I'm not going to fail this mission, And then again, today coming here was like another shot in the arm. I'm like, you know what, there's too many good things happening, too many pieces falling together, too many great connections for this not to happen. And it's just given me more motivation to go home and train up until September to get this done.
Get this going.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about a project that you were involved with. I think about a year ago, you went out and visited a couple of seafood farms, and I think that's really what really kind of lit the fire within you on kind of learning more about these issues that are out there and some of the solutions that exist to solve some of the issues that we're going to talk here about tonight.
Yeah, I was invited to go to Chile and right down south to Patagonia with a company called Velasco Salmon, and they were doing a sustainable aquaculture, and anyone that knows about sustainable aquaculture knows it's a very there's a very touchy subject.
Yeah, a lot of controversy.
There's a lot of controversy, and I didn't quite know how much it was until I landed in Chile. And so I had a lot of people that I knew, surfers, and a lot of people that like followed me, like sending some pretty nasty messages to me, you know, and I was like, wow, like, what have I done, you know? And then I thought about it and chatted to a couple of people. I'm like, you know what, like, I'm going to see this through. Like, I'm not one to quit, you know? And I'm so glad I did, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there doing the right thing and trying to do the right things and trying to do it the most sustainable way they can. Right. And obviously there's people that aren't. And I feel like you can't just focus on the people that are doing it bad. You've got to focus on the people that are trying to do it right as well. And so that got me on the path of this whole sustainable actions. And then basically with Pat Fraley here, he was working with Quicksilver at the time, and then we started taking a bunch of this documentary that I did with them to paddleboard races and doing talk stories like this, and we started to see the interaction with surfers and the people, like they were really interested and trying to understand, and they had no idea what sustainable aquaculture was. And so it was like, wow, this is something cool that we're doing, you know. And then we had a Veloso thing down at Huntington, and I met Zach Porter and told him, you know, basically I had this list of 10 paddles that I wanted to do in the back of my diary, and the Channel Islands is one of them. And I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to like sort of tie it in with sustainability. And he's like, did someone tell you to tell me that? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, this is what I do. And then 2 days later, like a week later, we're meeting with Anne from Wrigley, and then all of a sudden, here I am going to paddle the Channel Islands.
Yeah. So
I don't know what happened.
So let's talk about that. That's 150 miles? Is that?
Give or take, whatever. I figure like it's just a long way, so it's, yeah.
There's some big fish in these waters.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. So anyone that wants to come and paddle with me, more than welcome.
So let's get into the project itself. Let's talk about Seven Crossings.
Yeah.
You know, what are the things you wanna achieve through this?
Oh man, you know, I think that for me it's where's Nevaeh there? Come up here. You know, it's I did this hashtag, you know, and for me it was like I'm doing it for my girls, you know.
Yeah.
That was the start of it, you know. Like I really want them to just really enjoy what I've had to enjoy. And come here, darling.
Hi, Nevaeh.
And so, you know, it started as simple as that, you know. It was like I want them to just really enjoy what, you know, I've given them, which the house that we live in is from the ocean, you know.
Right.
And then now just with seeing the Wrigley and what they're doing and what you guys are doing here, it makes so much sense that to educate these kids, like she's the future, you know. This is who we've got to educate about what's going on in the world and with the oceans, you know. And you know, I think the K to 12 programs that the USC does,
yep.
You know, the scholarships, and just getting what the USC are doing over there and getting it out into the public. Like they're doing amazing things that I just learned about 2 days ago.
Yeah.
You know, and then coming here today and seeing what you guys are doing and realizing that it's just a perfect match, you know, to make the world a better place, you know. And so I just really hope that, you know, everyone leaves this room tonight realizing that we can all do something, you know, no matter how big or how small. What are you licking my... You nervous? You want to go back to Papa? You can go back. I love you.
Thank you, Nevaeh.
You know, sustainable food, sustainable energy, sustainable waste. You know, it's also important, and you know, just do what you can. You know, I always thought, you know, what am I going to do? How am I going to change what's going on in the world? Like, I'm just one person, you know. But if we all think like that, then it's never going to change, you know. So I think if we all take that responsibility of trying to do just something, and show your kids how to do that, teach them, and show the future generations. And I think that, we're going to leave this place in a better place.
Absolutely, Jamie. I couldn't agree with you more. I think you hit the nail on the head with talking about education, and I think that's what Seven Crossings is committed to, is educating the general public on what these issues are and what are the solutions that exist in order to address these issues.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a perfect segue to bring up our experts,
the experts
that are going to join us on the panel here. So now we'd like to have Dr. Ken Nealson and Dr. Jerry Schubel to join us. Ken and Jerry, come on up. So Dr. Ken Nealson is the director of the University of Southern California's Wrigley Institute for Environmental Studies. He has served as Wrigley Chair of Environmental Science at USC, adjunct professor and senior scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Caltech. And Dr. Jerry Schubel is the president and CEO at the Aquarium of the Pacific since 2002. Previously, he served as president and CEO emeritus of the New England Aquarium, Dean of Stony Brook University's Marine Sciences Research Center, and as adjunct professor, research scientist, and associate director of Johns Hopkins University Chesapeake Bay Institute. Welcome. All right, so let's get into the issues. So what would you say are the biggest challenges facing our oceans and environment today? And Ken, let's start with you.
Well, this is what we think about almost every day, isn't it, at the Institute? You have to decide what you're talking about with the biggest challenges. I think there's no question that global climate is the driver in the big challenges. And there are lots of things you can do about that, and a lot of the things at the Institute are aimed at solving the problem of global change and global climate and global warming, acidification, which we heard about from Jamie, the corals. But I couldn't ignore the one reason, the one thing he kept saying was pollution, whether it's nutrients, nitrogen contamination, allowing algal growth, whether it's plastics and all of the horrible things that are going on, or just getting to the environment in ways that luckily we have Catalina to study, which is a relatively non-polluted place. So you have a chance to look at the pristine versus the polluted sites.
I think you
it's an endless task to tell you all the problems, but I think these are the big ones. I think
we got time, Ken.
Yeah.
Jerry, would you like to add to that?
Well, I would agree. I think the most insidious problems in the ocean are the ones you can't see. So unlike plastic pollution, climate change, the warming of the ocean and altering its chemistry, we have to get those right. And in parallel, then we need to be dealing with things like plastics and nutrient pollution. But until we can curb the effects of climate change on the ocean, then we're going to lose a lot.
So are these insurmountable challenges? Are we doomed?
Go ahead, Ken. You go ahead.
Well, some are and some aren't. The thing I would bring up is phosphorus. Nobody thinks about phosphorus, but we talk about renewable things. Nitrogen is renewable because we can make it. We can make nitrogen fertilizer. But phosphorus, we will run out of phosphorus on this planet in about 50 years because it's not renewable. We can't make it. And it's international in the sense that already in Europe, who they're running out of phosphorus, they have an entire program on phosphorus recycling, and we're ignoring it in this country. I don't know about Australia, but probably they're on our side in the sense that until it's a problem, they don't try to solve it. And there's some kind of foresight is needed here. So this is one of my flags I'm waving now, that we should start thinking about phosphorus and say, let's settle down and get a plan. But it's so hard to do that if it's not a problem already.
And climate change is a problem. We aren't doomed, but I think it's very clear that we must dramatically and rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we should be funding research to remove CO2 that's already in the atmosphere and locking it away. Because once it's in the atmosphere, it stays there a long time. 50% stays there for decades, 30% for centuries, and 20% for millennia. So we have locked ourselves into a warmer world, a more acidic ocean, a warmer ocean, and all of these things. So we're not doomed, but we need to move quickly and decisively, and I think a lot of us need to rethink things that we have long believed, that if we just are good little boys and girls, everything will be all right. It won't be. And we're going to have to challenge some of our beliefs about energy. And wind and solar must play a very large role in our future, but you can't get to 100% clean energy by 2045, which is our goal in California, using renewable energy. Plus, they take so darn much land because they're low energy density.
Right. Yeah.
So we need to do what other countries and some states like Ohio have done within the last month. We need to rethink our position on nuclear.
Yep. So you touched on one of the big themes that I think is important for the audience to know, and that's energy. Now there's other themes that should be discussed as well, and I think those are themes that both the Wrigley Institute and the Aquarium of the Pacific are both addressing, and that's food as well. It's clean water. It's waste. Ken, can you tell us a little bit about what the Wrigley Institute is doing in regards to those themes?
Well, I can try. We're a small place, and we operate mostly by demonstrations. We call it leading by example, where you show how to solve a problem, but then you have to get across the boards. This is what we're doing tonight, and say, we've solved this problem on the island. Some of you in the video heard my statement that we're very lucky to have an island. Everything we eat comes out on a boat. All the things we throw away goes back on a boat. And we can get a budget. We can prove that we're being sustainable. Almost, if I tried to do this on campus at USC, it's impossible. Things are going 40 directions. You can't do it. So we're taking advantage of that to get the numbers for sustainability in different areas. I think this is an advantage that almost nobody else has, and so we can do it here. And it goes everywhere from food waste to human waste. But I must say over and over that all of this is enabled by renewable energy.
Yeah.
You can get water, you can get rid of your waste, you can grow food, but all of those things take energy. And all of us who have an electric car and plug it in when we go to work are a bunch of hypocrites, okay? And I have solar, so I'm not a hypocrite, okay? But this is a big deal, because if you go home and plug your car into your thing and you don't, that energy was probably made by burning coal in Utah or somewhere. And we have to get over this. We have to look at it as a system and say, it can't be just us on the island. It has to spread around. And my last word for the Wrigley is our big deal is education, and education to the young people. They're the ones, like this beautiful girl you saw here, who are going to inherit our mess. And if we educate them properly, they will change the world. And I wish I would change it, but I'm sorry. I don't have time. Somebody else will change the world, and it'll be the kids we educate properly.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why I think projects like Seven Crossings are so important, and what Jamie's trying to do here is raising that awareness and
Absolutely,
educate
yeah.
our general public about this. Jerry, anything you want to add in as well?
I would add, I think that the three categories that we have to be focusing on are the kinds and amounts of energy we use, the ways we grow and harvest our food, both on land and in the ocean, and our fresh water. These are the critical issues, and we have much of the knowledge and the technology to deal with each of these as long as we can keep an open mind and be willing to take some chances. Too many of us get ruled by what's called the precautionary principle. It says in the extreme, if you don't know all the effects that an action will take, you don't do it. Bob Frosch, who used to be the head of NASA, said if you take it to the extreme, you would never do anything new. If there were ever a time when we need to do things new and try things out and do them carefully with off-ramps if they go wrong, it is now. And I think we've compartmentalized. We look at our effects in the ocean or on land. We live on the land. Most of our effects on the ocean come from our activities on land, and I think the way we grow and harvest our food is another area we need to look at. Agriculture takes a huge toll on the ocean and on the land. We've had these green revolutions that have prevented the mass starvations that were predicted by Malthus and Paul Ehrlich, but those green revolutions came at a huge environmental price. We're now looking at the beginnings of what's called the blue revolution. We have to do it very carefully so we don't destroy the ocean. I think that in the trailer you talk about aquaculture, I think aquaculture has great potential, and I think if we could shift some of the protein production from the land to the ocean, we would reduce the toll both on the ocean and on the land. And siting the farms is job number one. You've got to put them in the right place. There are a lot of places that should not have aquaculture farms. And then the next thing is stocking them. Don't overstock them. Don't put too many fish in. Put the right kind of fish in. And the third one is feed. How do you feed them? Don't overfeed. And Wrigley is doing this interesting work with black fly larvae. And I thought I saw somebody in the film eating some of these.
That was Jamie. Yes.
I don't care to eat any of them, but they make good fish food.
That's going to get me to do the paddle.
That's his main protein source.
A little bit of salt and Tabasco, they're really good.
And eat them real fast, right?
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jerry. So, Ken, tell us about that. I mean, let's talk about the black soldier fly. I mean, it's a fascinating project that you're doing on the island.
Well, do you have a couple of hours here? No, look, this is the model we use to teach students about sustainability. That the big problem with food waste is we waste about 40% of our food. And it all goes to the landfill. And in the landfill, it turns into methane, which is a very active greenhouse gas. Food waste is the third biggest source of methane on the planet. It's a big problem. So we've been working for about 5 years on a program to take the food waste and first treat it so it doesn't rot. Everybody knows if you've left your food in your refrigerator a little too long and you open the refrigerator, you want it to be someone else's refrigerator, right? But it's yours, so you have to deal with this. This is the problem with food waste. When you take it out, in a few days it starts to rot. So we've developed methods to keep it from rotting, okay? Then we feed this food waste to a larvae of an insect called a soldier fly. And these insects eat all of the food. And we then take those little tiny insects that grew into nice fat larvae, which one of us had for lunch today, and we use that as fish food or chicken food, and never is a molecule of methane produced. This is the recycling we're talking about. It isn't just, and we've now finished 1 year of doing this on the island, and we haven't sent even a pound of food waste to the landfill. Okay? This is huge. Okay, I
Ken,
think
there's
in
also,
the
but,
end,
but there's also a byproduct, right, from this soldier fly larvae.
there are many byproducts.
And I think to Jerry's point about aquaculture, I mean, that kind of goes full circle in terms of what you can do with this protein that's left over from the waste of the
Yeah.
soldier fly larva.
If you treat the food waste by anaerobic digestion, you make methane. My prediction is that in 10 years, methane is going to be worth almost nothing because of renewable energy. If you make it into protein, which is what these larvae are, it's just going to get worth more and more. And when it gets approved for human consumption, which it will, after we had our demonstration today, it will be worth a lot of money. And this is part of sustainability, that if you look 10 years down the road, you have to say that economically it also has to be sustainable. And I think in general, this will be for all the aspects we're looking at. So, you know, and when I look at this is a great opportunity to jump across to the next level and make this work. Okay, and I think the words are now that in landfills in Los Angeles, in 2 years, it'll be illegal to send any food waste. And in Los Angeles City alone, that's 300 tons per day of food waste, according to the mayor's office. Wouldn't it be interesting if you could convert that into protein and sell it to the rest of the world?
Jamie, you'll have lots to nibble on if that happens.
We
But you know, this is
we won't make you eat one of those.
Yeah, this is a good example of innovation. And we live in this amazing state with the greatest variety of environments, the greatest variety of climates, great public and private universities. We ought to be leading the way in developing innovative ways to deal with climate change in all of its manifestations. And we don't use the same creativity and innovation in our environmental approaches that we use in media and in high tech and in medicine. And that's what I hope, one of the things that will come out of your crossings. You've got to try some things and figure out what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. And I think it's ventures like Seven Crossings that can help accelerate the rate of adoption for some of the solutions that we're talking about today. All right, so Jamie, I got a question for you. So one of your goals for this project is to inspire. So what do you envision your role as a professional surfer to be in broader efforts to educate the public about the challenges facing our oceans, and how do you envision inspiring that change?
That's a good question. I think just to follow my lead, you know what I mean? I think this project is not about me, you know. This is not about me trying to do some crazy paddle or get a pat on the back and break any records, you know. This is just purely for the good of God, you know. And I just hope that people will see what I've done and go, wow, this is what someone can do, you know. How big or no small, and follow my lead. And I just really hope to see that USC, the Wrigley Institute, and people that are doing great things get the recognition they deserve. And like these guys say, like, make the change, you know, like, and just, where are those 300,000 tons a day going to go of food waste? I mean, that's a good question, right? I mean, where's that going to go, you know? And it's scary, you know, and it's like it's like, we'll deal with it when it happens. You know, it's too late, you know. So, you know, I'm trying to do my bit. What my wheelhouse is doing stupid shit. I'm good at it. And you know, and if I can do some stupid stuff and, you know, we can get some recognition and build up some profile about this stuff, then so be it, you know. I'll do some stupid stuff.
Well, I do want to say a big thank you to all of our panelists here, and I do want to give some time now for a Q&A here from the audience. So if anyone has any questions from the audience for our panelists, we'd like to get into our Q&A portion.
And Ryan, can you just let them know, can you guys use the mics? Because this is live streaming, so we want to make sure that people can hear your questions. Thanks.
Where did the idea of using soldier or black fly larvae come from? Why not some other source? It's fascinating.
Yeah, good question. The reason that we chose the soldier fly, we looked through the literature, is that the adults of the soldier fly only live for 3 or 4 days because they live on a fat gland and they have no mouth, so they can't bite anybody. They have no anus, they have no digestive system, and they can't carry any diseases. Plus, they're already endemic in every state in the Union. So even Alaska has soldier flies, okay? So this is a big problem if you're moving around. We talked to the people in Singapore about using soldier flies, and it's sure enough, they already exist in Singapore. So you don't have to import a new species. This is a big deal in biological control. The other thing is they're just so beautiful, you know that if you really
and they taste good, right, Jamie?
Only a true
They're like
scientist
some of
would
those
say that.
fish in the aquarium, you know. You have to be their mother to really love them, but really they're ideal creatures. And after several years, we really know how to do the husbandry of these soldier flies. It didn't take long. Some of you may know it, but I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and I love husbandry. I love farming, and this is like returning to my roots to grow these soldier flies.
I want to thank you for the presentation. It was quite educational, inspirational, and since Catalina is doing so well with what you're doing, what city in the United States do you feel that once you get it all the way that you need it to be, can you come to, and what kind of support do you need from that city or individuals to move forward so we can move forward and not stay on a standstill and just have Catalina? Thank you.
Well, you've got to have a city that embraces innovation, that's willing to take chances, do something different, and I would pick a small to medium-sized city that's manageable, and I might offer up Long Beach. Long Beach is Long Beach is 400,000. It's small enough to be manageable, but large enough to have national impact. You can't manage Los Angeles. You can't manage New York City. And so I think you have to have success at a smaller scale and then scale it up. But that's a very good idea. If you could get a city and to really embrace all of these, energy, food, water, and again, California, we face all of these issues in spades going forward. We have the largest agricultural economy in the United States. It's going to be severely impacted by climate change, both temperature increases and the paucity of water. We've got the largest ocean economy in the United States of any state. It's dominated by tourism that's driven by beaches, number one. Number two, by goods movement, shipping and transportation. And number three, it's offshore oil. 2 of the 3 of those will be gone by the end of this century. What's the ocean economy of California be like? What's the agricultural economy? California, as I say, we ought to be the world's laboratory for devising, testing, refining strategies to thrive in the Anthropocene. Not to survive, but to thrive.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree totally with that, yeah.
And one of the inspirations, I think, for you is for people you're going where others have not gone before. You're taking some risk. And calculated risk, which is the appropriate kind, but I think that can be an inspiration.
This is a question for Jamie, and it has to do with the Seven Crossings project. I think it's fabulous, and I understand the concept, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about how you and the Wrigley Institute intend to sort of maximize the impact of your journey. Will there be media? Will there be education forums? Can you talk a little bit about how you're going to achieve that impact that you hope for?
Well, yeah, I think that we're going to try and have everyone follow the paddle. Live streaming some stuff. Obviously, we have so much social media stuff these days, Instagram and all that sort of stuff. So, definitely we'll have something coming out so you can follow my journey. A little speck on the ocean somewhere, and look, obviously, once the journey's finished, that's when the real work begins. And we're going to film a documentary. And we're going to try and, so that's obviously going to go out to the world and show them exactly what we're trying to achieve. And then, the big thing, like I've said before, is with the Wrigley Institute is just get them the credit they deserve, raise money for them. I'd like to, the money to go towards the education, have the K to 12 education, the kids, scholarships, all that sort of stuff. I hope that one day that the money that we're able to raise an awareness. Some kid gets a scholarship and that kid becomes a Nobel Peace Prize winner or something, I mean, wouldn't that be amazing, So just educate, get it out there. These people are doing amazing work. There are people out there that are doing incredible work that no one knows about. And I think that needs to change. And it's, education, I think, is the biggest key.
If I can add a word to that, if this were a meeting that Ken Nealson assembled to tell you what I was doing in the Wrigley, there would be about 10 people here. Okay, I'm a realist. I know how this works. Because Jamie Mitchell is here, and we have this wonderful relationship with the aquarium, it's a room full of people, and we're, in a sense, preaching to the choir, but in another sense, we're trying to educate the choir and see what good things could come out of something like this. And I think you've asked one of the most important questions. What the heck are you going to do, and how are you going to do it? And we will figure out a way, okay? And it's
one step at a time.
Yeah, that's
one
right.
stroke at a time, like the paddle.
Yeah, that's right.
One stroke at a time, one step at a time. So,
but I would like to reinforce that, because I spent much of my adult life in academia struggling with the same thing you did. We need to have more partnerships between the research community, that's where the discoveries are made, with guys like you, the explorers, the people who are out doing exciting things, and informal science organizations, aquariums, science centers, natural history museums, because aquariums and science centers don't have great scientific depth. Sometimes we like to think we do, but we don't. And so we have to have partnerships with people like USC, UCLA, all these colleges and universities, and whenever we develop a new film, a new exhibit, whatever, or this new wing, we brought people to the table and over a period of several years to develop the story.
Hi. Happy to see everybody here. I've got one comment that I know people around the room who know me know I can't just keep silent. And then I have a question for Jamie. The comment is we do not need nuclear power. Sorry, I think this is an echo here, huh? We don't need nuclear power. We can do without it, but I'm going to leave it at that. And for Jamie, you've been out on the water a lot. Have you seen changes in the ocean in the last 10 years? What have you seen? What have you noticed? Kind of give us a feel for how things have changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, the biggest thing I've seen is just pollution. And it's not on the water, it's on the beaches. I've been in the middle of the Maldives 5 years ago on a deserted island that no one would even be close to going to, and I paddled up onto it on my stand-up paddleboard, and there was trash all over it. And I'm like, how the hell did that get here, you know? Why is it here? Like I said, diving and snorkeling in places that I had for 20 years, you know, with the coral dying and not as many fish around, you know, overfishing. It's just endless, you know, and it's really sad. And like I said, with my kids, like, I'd love to take them to the place that I used to dive back in Coffs Harbour and show them the reefs that I used to dive around, but some of them don't really exist anymore, you know, and to me, that's really sad. So, you know, I travel the world a lot, and, you know, you go to, you know, a lot of places, especially in Asia, like places like Singapore, Bali, Thailand, and people just don't understand what they're doing. You know, you see people just walk along the beach and just drop a plastic water bottle and keep walking, and it's just normal to them. I've been over to Morocco and seen a whole beach like where you can't walk and see any bit of sand. It's just all trash from the mountains coming down when it rains. It's just really disgusting, to be honest with you. So, you know, they're the initial changes that I've seen.
And we do need nuclear energy, but that's a longer discussion. Now, but let me add, if you look, so we've lost 25% of our tropical coral reefs, and in all likelihood, we could lose all of the remaining ones by the end of the century. Fish stocks are moving to higher latitudes to stay within their preferred temperature range. Fishing villages, particularly in New England, are being abandoned because the primary source of livelihoods are moving away, and they don't have the vessels to go after them. Oxygen levels are decreasing at all depths. There's all of these fundamental changes that are happening to the ocean that put its ability to deliver ecosystem services at risk. We've got to be concerned about those.
Hi, you just answered the big part of the question. Is when Jamie mentioned we can't live without our oceans, I was going to try to see, is there some way to create more of a sense of urgency as to why, so that most people who might not understand why can relate to it and maybe decide they want to contribute to helping.
Well, that's why we built this whole wing, Pacific Visions, to develop a greater sense of urgency. I think it has to come through education. And one of the problems, you know, we've never been good at long-term planning in this country. We've been very good at responding to crises. This is a crisis unlike any we've ever faced before because it has so much inertia. You can't turn this around quickly. And that's what's different. And it'll be through education, though, and guys like you that raise the awareness that we better act now.
Yeah, hi. To Dr. Schubel, I wanted to comment also on the nuclear issue, and that is that I read recently that in Texas, of all places, they've now exceeded their energy production with wind is now more than coal in that state. And I know that these solar farms take up a lot of land space. And I personally think that nuclear can be a good stopgap measure between new technology. Where do you think we are at as far as maximizing renewable energies exclusive of nuclear, say, in the next 20 years?
It's a function of geography. You know, in some places, solar is the best solution. In some place, wind is the best solution. There's about twice as much energy we get from wind that we get from solar. Some place it's hydrothermal. Some place it's using hydropower. I think we make the mistake of thinking there's one answer that's right for every part of the country or every part of the world. We need portfolios of sources that are made up of much clean energy as possible, recognizing geographic differences, and we haven't done that. You know, it's interesting. The comparison was made, if you look at France, which is 98% nuclear. They have one design for nuclear plants and 73 different kinds of cheese. They say the United States has one kind of cheese and 73 different designs for nuclear.
All right. I'm going to remember that line.
All right, let's question in the back, and then we have Val.
I have a question about aquaculture, if we could talk about that for just a minute. I understand that some people are against it. What can we say to those who are against it, and how we can avoid that downward thought for others, so we can keep everybody positive about aquaculture?
Is James here? All right, I have someone who would be the perfect person to answer this question.
Welcome, James.
What's up, guys? I think that's a great question, a question that I get asked all the time. I've been involved in aquaculture about 6 years. We have a project down in Baja where we raise fish in a manner that produces fish that I want to eat, fish that doesn't have mercury, doesn't have plastics, doesn't have antibiotics. But that's not the only way to produce aquaculture. There's a lot of farms that try to maximize their profits and minimize their risk, and they do that with antibiotics and really high density farming. And you see the same thing in cow production or chickens. You can have pasture-raised animals or you can have caged animals, but it's really a factor of the farm. So when you ask a butcher, where did this chicken come from? Who is the farmer? You're asking the right questions, because once you know about that farm, you know about the practices. So if somebody wants to have propose the question, well, isn't all aquaculture bad? It's really just the same question that you would propose to any type of farm. It comes down to the farming practices. There are great farms that you want to support, and there are other commodity-based products that are always going to find a market. They're going to find a market with the large commodity-based buyers, but if you can direct your dollars towards farms that are really trying to produce the best quality, then perhaps we'll actually develop enough demand for those businesses to be sustainable.
And you know, it's interesting that much of the knowledge and the technology for modern aquaculture was developed in the United States. But to employ it, most of these, they either go to Baja or they go to Panama or somewhere else. We import as a nation 91% of our seafood, 91%. Most of it comes from countries where it's either grown or harvested under unknown environmental and human rights conditions. We have the second largest EEZ of any nation in the world. We have the highest environmental standards. We have the highest human rights standards and public health standards, and yet we don't have a single farm. We need to get a farm in the water, a finfish farm, and demonstrate how to do it properly. The first thing is put it in the right place. As I said earlier, there are a lot of places you shouldn't have these farms. Put it in the right place, stock it with the right species, and then you use all of your flies to but until you have a farm in the water where people can see it and look at it, and you can document it and research it and monitor it, we're not going to make much progress.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I have to just note that the reason I know James is he came out to Catalina to see what the heck we were doing. And that's how I learned about all of the aquaculture he was doing. On a place like Catalina, you can't realistically do aquaculture. It's not a big place. We can't expand. But we could do demos in working with someone like James and show, again, that it actually works. And this is what we need to do in this country, because there is a great negative feeling about aquaculture. from people who've tried to make money and fail because of our rules, I think. But it can be done, and it can be done the right way. And so I'm fairly optimistic about this, but we need to do it in the right way again.
Hi, my name is Val.
Hi, Val.
Hi. Well, that brings up actually another question that I have to ask. When people ask me here at the aquarium in our education venues about aquaculture, and I will say how great it is, and their next response is, oh, but doesn't that involve dangerous chemicals and the PCBs? And I usually have to search for an answer because I don't have the up-to-date information. Now, that's question one, and then after that, if you would answer, please, what is the significance of the loss of phosphorus?
Wow.
Okay?
Let me start with you. If you want to avoid growth hormones and antibiotics, then don't eat any kind of beef because they're loaded. In modern aquaculture, they are not. And so it's far and away the healthiest source of protein with the lowest environmental impact when done properly. When done properly. There was a lot of bad aquaculture in shrimp aquaculture in Indonesia and other places. That was the past, though, and I think the future is different. What was the other question? I forgot.
Phosphorus.
Oh, phosphorus.
That was mentioned.
That's your.
What was the question?
I don't know.
The importance.
The significance of the loss of phosphorus. I'm not familiar with what the consequences will be if we do not have phosphorus.
Ah, okay. Yeah, well, this is really a wonderful question because for years, the biggest problem in the U.S. has been too much phosphorus. Okay, if you look at Lake Erie in the 1960s, when I was a student, it looked like you could walk across Lake Erie because they have green algal blooms, which were a function of so much phosphorus because everyone was using trisodium phosphate to clean their walls and using phosphorus detergents. We had an excess of phosphate, and it showed up in the environment. It almost ruined Lake Tahoe until they discovered that the problem was too much phosphate. So you can understand people in this country saying, well, not enough phosphorus, this is ridiculous. But we're one of those lucky countries that has a few phosphorus mines, and we have plenty of phosphorus now, and we just don't have the ability to look 20 years down the road and say that the world's going to be out of phosphorus. And then we won't have enough. And the result of that is the productivity in the ocean will drop by a factor of 10 or more. And the phosphorus is part of every living creature. And when you get to a point you don't have enough, then the bacteria don't have enough, the things that eat bacteria, and finally the fish. So this is a huge global problem but it brings up something that Jerry said a while ago. We have a very hard time thinking 20 or 30 years down the road. It's our political systems don't allow it. Nobody's worried about getting elected in 20 years. And it's even trying to change something like the ways of food waste disposal. It's very hard to get people to change for something that will be an advantage in 10 or 15 years. And this is the thing we have to overcome, in my opinion, that we have to get people willing to think more than just 5 years ahead, or maybe 10 or 15. And this is the perfect question to bring up about that, because phosphorus is not a problem today. It's going to be a problem in 20 years.
And I would add that one of the issues that we have in California is we have all these great research institutions, universities, national laboratories. We don't have good mechanisms to inject the latest advances in research into the policy-making process before policies are made. And once a policy is made, it's very difficult for a politician to say, we made a mistake, we should have done this. We've got to have much better mechanisms to do that, particularly in the environmental field, and so we can harvest the advances in knowledge that are made.
Yeah, and I think those of you who've heard me complain about this in lectures, which I do often, almost nothing about sustainability is rocket science. We know how to do everything to be sustainable. It's about policy. It's about politics. It's about psychology. It's about teaching the young people to make sure their parents do it right, okay? And so often I give a lecture and the student comes up and says, "Thank you, now I know how to argue with my father." and this is really the truth. I mean, I would have the same trouble with my father if he was still alive, okay? And, but this is a very important thing, I think, because it's an issue of policy more than science. Now, the basic science we do, that will give us solutions in 10 years that will make it better than it is now. But most of the people that I know doing basic science have no hope that what they're doing is going to change things tomorrow. We need to do applied science where we take what we know and show how it can help us.
I think we have time for probably one more question.
Hi, I'm 12 years old and I'm from Boulder, Colorado. So oceans are a little amazing. But what does my generation have to do to make sure that in 20 and 30 years we have phosphorus and the beautiful oceans we have today?
Going to be a tough one, okay. Okay, so this is like the greatest last question ever. Because I think there are 100 answers to it. There isn't one thing you can do. This is like setting an example. Every time you see a piece of garbage, pick it up and throw it in the waste can. Every time you see this, go ahead and do it. Every time and it's a matter of changing the habits of the way we live, okay? And when you get into the habit of not thinking that a long shower is a bad thing, then you take a 10-minute shower, right? And when water is limiting, it would be a much better idea to take a 3-minute shower. But we don't think about that stuff all the time. We don't, and it's just a way of looking at things, and there isn't a single answer, I don't think. There's a ton of answers.
I would make sure your parents get out and vote, number one. Do everything you can to reduce your family's carbon footprint, environmental footprint. And the other thing is, if you can remember back when you were 3, your favorite word was why. Keep asking them why. When they say, "I'm against nuclear energy," say, "Why?" And when they give you an answer, say, "Why?" Just drive them crazy with why.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's wonderful. And I would also say, every Wednesday at the Catalina station, I give a lecture to about 50 Boy Scouts who were all working on their sustainability merit badge. And these are not Boy Scouts anymore. About a third of them are girls. And they ask fantastic questions. And for this sustainability merit badge, they have to go home and teach their parents how to do things. And their parents have to sign into it. We should take a lesson from the Scouts. I mean, this is good stuff. And this is what it
really is. Well, I do want to say a big thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, Jerry, so much for being here. We hope you enjoyed our conversation tonight. And this is an amazing project that is just now taking off. And if you'd like to get involved with the Seven Crossings project, please make sure you visit the website. The Seven Crossings production team. There we go. The Seven Crossings production team is here tonight, so make sure that you talk with them before you leave. If you'd like to get more information, I actually did find out just a moment ago from one of the production team members that they are working with the World Surf League to actually broadcast this initiative. And the World Surf League has an audience of about 8.8 million people around the world. Okay, so this project is going to go global. So you're going to be part of an amazing initiative. So thank you all once again for being here tonight, and have a great evening. Thank you, panel.
Well, that was fun.